Well, hello everybody. So here is the conundrum. My daughter has a computer that is actually made by Hewlett-Packard. It's an HP model 8200. It's an Elite 8200. Anybody that has heard of those probably knows that, well, they have a few challenges with them. So in front of you, I have a video card. It's used. It's not a modern generation, but it's a fairly modern high performance graphics card, and I would like to put this into her computer because the computer she has right now, that HP 8300, has a built-in video card on the motherboard, and as you can imagine, they're very not very good performance. So anything gaming related or anything, the computer gets really sluggish. I mean, it's a good computer still. It has a Core i5 processor, and it has 16 gigabytes of RAM, and it's got a 2 terabyte drive, and DVD, all those good things, but no video card. So I went to go put this in, and I opened it up, and lo and behold, it does not have a standard power supply, but instead, for some reason, HP thought it would be a good idea to put a horrible thing like this in there. Now, as you can see, this is the entire power supply, okay? So this would be mounted in the rear of the computer. You have your power input for your power cord, and the only power cables coming out of there, you're seeing it right here. That is it. So basically you have this little signal cable, all right? Let me focus you. Signal cable, one power cord, and this provides power to the motherboard, and then there are other plugs on the motherboard that provide power to all the hard drives and everything. So the motherboard powers the hard drives, which is terrible. And then you have this little CPU 4-pin, which is typical, that you would see for the CPU power. And that's it. And in addition to that, it is a horrible 240 watts. Who on earth would put a 240 watt power supply in a modern computer like this? Heaven only knows. So the problem is, let me bring this up. Here is a standard power supply, as you would normally see in a normal computer. And if you look at the plugs on this thing, they look absolutely nothing like the proprietary design of the HP power. Now apparently HP makes a whole series of computers that use this crappy design. Come on guys, are you that cheap that you really want to force people to buy your power supplies and things? I mean, come on. You guys can do a better job than that. But anyways, I am not going to be defeated by this. No, I have actually done some research and found that we can actually convert this over. I'm going to rewire one of these power supplies, this one right here, so that it will have these connectors. This is an old power supply out of an old HP. I'm going to cut these wires off, and I'm going to wire them into here. Now, I'm going to show you here in a minute why it's not so easy as just splicing some wires together. If you look down here, okay, here we are. If you look down here, here is your normal power supply, okay, the actual pins for a standard ATX power supply. And one of the things you're going to notice on this, or I'm going to draw your attention to, and let me get this focused, is this purple wire. And if you look, every standard ATX style power supply has this purple wire. They call it SB, or standby. And on a standard motherboard, that standby voltage, which is what allows the machine to turn on and off and operate, it allows the motherboard to be able to operate the power supply and the on and off and all that. That is a 5-volt supply. The problem is, if you look at the pinout, here's your 3 connectors on this. On one of these, you know, on this one here, the purple wire is still there. It's on pin 6. Let's see right here. See pin 6. You can see it. And that pin 6 is 12 volts on the HP. So not only did they deviate from the ATX standard with the connectors, but they even deviated from the ATX standard with the power. So basically, you have to have, instead of a 5-volt standby, you have a 12-volt standby. Well, I sure don't like that, but anyways, not to be defeated, I pulled one of these out of the shelf. I have a box full of them, and these are just little Chinese-made boost power supplies. So what they'll do is, I'm going to take that booster, and by the way, I'm not going to take credit for this little drawing. Somebody before me came along online and posted this. They went through all the trouble of wringing out all these signals and wires, comparing them to the ATX standard, and then making this little wiring diagram. So thank you to the guy that did this. He's not really mentioned on there. This is just floating around. But anyways, we're going to put a voltage booster in here, this boost supply, and we're going to take that 5 volts and we're going to bring it up to 12 volts. And that will take care of that issue. And then beyond that, we're going to cut these connectors off of this old power supply, this junker power supply, and splice them onto the new power supply. And then we're going to keep all of the power connectors for the video card and for the hard drives and all that other stuff. So if that sounds interesting to you, stay with me and we'll go through doing this, and then we'll test it all out. And I'm going to show you a few things that I do when I'm testing some of this stuff. So stay with me. I first started out by going onto NVIDIA's website, and I printed out the specifications for a GTX 970 video card. And the main thing I'm really interested in is the part that almost got cut off on the printout. But the power draw on this power supply, on the 12-volt rail, is about 145 watts, which is going to be somewhere just under 13 amps, around 13 amps, 12 to 13 amps. So we know that in addition to the current that we're going to need for our hard drives and our optical drives and our motherboard and our processor, the 12-volt rail for that we have to have an additional 13, maybe 15 amps to drive the actual video card itself. Now, that's something you have to look at before you choose when you're choosing a power supply. So what we're seeing here, I'm going to back up, I'm going to focus you in, is most power supplies, especially aftermarket ones, will have written on the side of them the specifications for each of the power rails. So if you look on here, 5 volts has a maximum output of 20 amps, which is good. The 3.3 volts is 24 amps, and that's what your processor is going to run on, your CPU. And then this particular power supply has a single 12-volt rail, and it is capable of putting out a nice healthy 40 amps. Okay, so you figure 15 of those amps will go to the video card just to give us some headroom. Okay, and we're still going to have 25 amps of current for the motherboard and all of the drives, and that's way more than enough. So this will be plenty. This 500 watt supply will be more than enough for what we need. The other thing you want to look at is the standby voltage, 5 volts, is rated at 3 amps. Okay, and on this one, the HP supply, this standby, if you look at it, I don't know if I'm in focus or not. It's one thing about this manual focus that I have it set. I have it set to manual focus, but 1.3 amps at 12 volts. So once again, even, you know, if we go with the losses and things of using this little boost circuit, we, you know, since the 3 volt or the 5 volt supply on this has 3 amps, it's double the current at half the voltage. We should still be just fine boosting this up for our standby. So I'm going to use a little device that I use an awful lot, and it's, you can buy these on eBay and on Amazon and Banggood, and a lot of places sell them, and it's a power supply tester, and it's a really nice way to bench test your power supply. Now, it won't put a load on the power supply, it'll just check the voltages and so forth is all it's going to do. So let me get that hooked up and I'll show you how it works. I have all of the power cords connected up just like this, and they're all marked. So I have the one for the CPU, the one of the PCI Express, I have one up here from the hard drives, and I have the main power. And I'm going to flip the power supply on up here. You can see it comes on, tells us that our 12, 3.3, and 5 volts are all present on the these connectors on here. And it's also going to tell us that our negative 12 volts is right around negative 11.9, 12 volts there. Positive 12 volt rail number 2, or number 2, this is all one rail, they split up, but it's present. And then the connectors for 12 volt rail 1 are present. 5 volts is 5.0, so everything is good here. And so it's just a quick check. It jumpers the one wire in here to turn the power supply on, so it just allows you to test this power supply without actually having to hook it up to a computer. And if we look down here with no load on the power supply, I'm going to go mobile here with the camera for a minute. And if you look here, you can see we're right around 7.9 watts. So this is a pretty efficient power supply. I mean, it's drawing 7 watts just to drive the fans and drive this test device and everything in idle. So everything's good. It's a good power supply. I always like to test them before I use them, even though this one isn't really old, but it is a used power supply out of another old computer. So I figured I'd just give it a shot. So it's good. So now we're going to start, and I'm going to wire up the harness. Well, I have the new harness wired up, and you can see the only thing I really had to cut off was the actual CPU board plug. All the wires I needed were in that, and as you can see, I didn't use a whole lot of them. For the boost the little boost module, I left this adjuster up a little bit so that we can, if I need to tweak it, I can. The other thing is, you want to adjust this thing before you you connect this. Connect it to an external 5 volt power supply and adjust your output so that you get your 12 volts. When I first turned this on, the way this one was tweaked up, it was maxed out, and there was 35 volts coming out of there. So, if you just hook this up and then plug it into your computer, I would have just put 35 volts into the 12 volt standby circuit, and it would have definitely fried the board. So this is adjusted properly now, and there's your 2 plugs. This brown one here is just a standard CPU plug, and I can just use the CPU plug that came with it, the original power supply. So really, everything's pretty much ready to go, and all we have to do now is go ahead and put it in the machine and test it out. Alright, here is the old computer, or here is the computer with the old power supply. You can see this one kind of is a little bit bigger one than that other one that came out of there, but still it has that funky connector. Alright, just kind of showing you before, and then we'll do an after. And here is our after. And as you can see, our fan's running. We got our video card installed. Everything's tied up, and I think we're going to be in good shape here. I'm going to have to take it up and set it all up and get the drivers in and so forth, but looks like the power supply worked. Even the power switch worked. So there you go. I guess it shows that we can convert a standard power supply over to the proprietary HP power supply. And one last thing, of course, it had to give me one last fit, and that is the actual mounting screws didn't match with the holes, because of course they drilled the holes differently too, so I had to drill that out too. But anyways, everything fit and it all looks good. So I hope this helps some of you out who have some of these HP computers with these weird power supplies. They are convertible. That's how we do it. Alright, see you guys next time.